Howdy Hexers, I'm Mokog. Welcome back to HexHunter. Today we are going to be talking about a wonderful aspect of Hex, and it's going to be a bit PvP focused today. We're going to be talking about effort values. Now, if you've not heard of effort values before, this is a concept surrounding generally what you would consider for tournament payouts, and when one is weighing whether or not they should participate in a particular type of event. The idea being is that you want to be able to put in the lowest amount of effort to get the greatest amount of gain, and you want to manage your time this way so that while you're playing, not only are you enjoying the games, you're also getting as much reward from it as possible. So when you take that thing into consideration, there's a few things that you consider for like your inputs and then also what your rewards and your outputs are going to be. And it's generally kind of a standard type of ratio. Now, since there's a lot of different formats that come about, there's a lot of different ways that you can utilize effort value in itself. For instance, a lot of the times you'll see it utilized around for tournaments. Most of the time that's where it's going to center around, but sometimes you'll see it used in a couple other weird places, and it's always referring back to the what you put in to what you get out. So specifically, we're going to look at effort value around a couple specific concepts in Hex. Primarily, we're going to look at tournaments, but we're also going to take a look at what are the inputs of effort value as well as what are the outputs. So inputs wise, it is primarily platinum, time, as well as your skill. So if you have we'll start with skill. So if you have a certain particular skill set, let's say you're able to win about 50% of your games, and let's say in most of your limited events, you end up winning 2 matches but losing in the finals. So if that's about what your average is, and you're always attempting to improve that as you go forward, but if that's what you end up doing, you can have a fairly predictable amount of output over time when you're looking at drafts. If you have a tendency to end up winning your drafts or going 5-3 or 5-2 in your gauntlets, or 5-2 in your constructed events, that gives you a really good understanding of about what you can expect skill level wise, as long as you maintain that level of skill. And so skill is great at determining your output at the end, but it's a variable thing. It's not always going to be constant. It is going to change with every set, and you always want to be increasing your skill level over time. But there are other things that are really constant, like the cost of plat, what you can expect packs to be, the number of packs for entering into various types of events. And the outputs tend to be fairly standard as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of those here in our tournament screen. So if you ever actually want to see what the payouts of a tournament are, you can actually check that out beforehand. So if you want to see what the payouts are for a draft queue, it'll automatically take you to the reward screen. And if you want, you can flip over here to rules, but it tells you what you get depending on where you will fall in. So if you end up taking first place in a competitive draft, you'll get 4 Primal Dawn booster packs and 1 Armies of Myth booster pack. Second place is going to get you 2 Primal Dawn, 1 Armies. Third and fourth will get you 1 of each pack. So that means that you have to put in at least enough effort to get prizes to make it into third and fourth, which is into the second round of a competitive draft tournament. Now, if you took that and you decided you want to do something like the standard draft queue, we see that what you end up earning from that is actually quite different. So you always play 3 rounds, and so for 3 match wins, you're getting 2 Primal Dawns and 1 booster. For your 2 match wins, you're getting 1 and 1, and for 1, you're getting a Primal Dawn. And so what you would say for these is that they have 2 different levels of effort value. You have a higher top-end effort value for your competitive draft, but you have a lower top-end or a lower-end effort value for competitive draft queue, because you just need 1 win and you have 3 attempts to which to put in to at least get a prize. And if you get all 3, you only end up replacing your effective draft itself. Where in the competitive, you end up truly being able to replace your draft at second place and then having additional resources to sell to make sure that you can perpetuate going through and then doing the drafts over and over again. When people talk about going infinite, what they're saying is that they're getting first place often enough and the prizes that they're earning from them have been consistent enough that they are never really paying out of pocket for drafts anymore. Essentially, they are hitting the top end of the EV consistently and able to continue playing, pushing through the times when they may not be quite so lucky. But let's go ahead and take a look at specifically how we would calculate this EV for the tournament itself. And let's say that we have a tendency to at least get past our first round in all cases, but we won't always make it into the first side. And we will go ahead and we will switch over to a really awesome segment. We're going to take a look and whiteboard this a little bit. So we have a clear whiteboard in our overlay here, and we're going to use that to kind of calculate what we want to do for our effort values. So taking a look to start off with our comp draft. So we have two scenarios, right? So we're going to do two scenarios. So in one scenario, we're end up going to be fairly often hitting here on our third place. So our third and fourth place, and every once in a while we might take a second place. So every time we enter into a competitive draft, it costs us 2 Primal Dawn packs, and it's going to cost us 1 Armies of Myth, and no matter what we enter as far as it comes to draft, that's how much it's going to cost us. Now, in addition to that, we have different levels of prizes. So we might have one set of prizes where we're getting 1 and 1, and another one where we might be getting 2 and 1. So we have 2 sets that we want to solve for here. So if we break down how much it's going to cost us, let's say we go the lowest possible that we can do. So if our Primal Dawn packs are selling for about the equivalent of $1.79, and our Armies of Myth are selling for roughly $1.80. So we put these suckers together and we end up with a specific value . So that means to enter into this draft, our cost is 5.38. So that's how much it costs to enter into the draft. Now, what we end up winning out of this, so we have 1.79 and plus 1.8. So we can, if we just get into 4th and 5th place, we would end up getting about 359 in value. But we end up with at least the same value just as related to packs here. Now the thing we can't forget is we have at least plus $1, 100 platinum to enter into the tournament. So we're not getting out ahead at second place, but we're getting very, very, very close for our effort value. We're close to 1-to-1, and that's not a terrible ratio, but it's not a profitable ratio. We end up coming out really far ahead when we start taking a look at our when we really start taking a look at the other types of draft queues. So our first place is really the one that we want to go for here, because our first place is going to give us something a lot more compendable. So, because we're getting 4 of the Armies of Myth packs, and we're getting one of the, we're getting 4 Primal Dawn, 1 Armies of Myth. If we ended up going first place on this draft, we have a truly positive effort value. Because so at the pack entrance prices, you end up coming out ahead on your draft truly only when you hit first place. So if you wanted to take and divide those numbers, so we would actually reverse this, and we'll do $8.96 divided by 6.38. So the ratio we're going here for is 1.4. That you would say is a positive effort value. you have when you end up consistently getting first, you have that profit associated with that. And that's kind of what we look at when we're looking at effort value. So let's say you take a look at constructed. So if we were wanting to do a constructed gauntlet, so you take a look at what our constructed gauntlet has. So if we end up getting 5 match wins, we end up getting Primal Dawn booster packs, and so we're getting 6 Primal Dawn booster packs. So to go first place in that, we're going to end up having 6 times about what we can sell them. We're neglecting the auction house fee. So winning first place, getting those 5 match wins, gives us basically 10 spot 7, 10 spot 7 4 in value here. Now our 4th place isn't too shabby either. If we're able to get 4 match wins, and that gives us at $7.16. So if we're going through constructed gauntlet, we end up paying out 300 platinum to participate, and we have to build a constructed deck. So on one side we have $3 worth of platinum, but we can have that constructed deck is really where that initial sink comes in, because your constructed deck could be $14 worth if you're running a really aggressive burn deck, or it could be something where it's like $100 deck. So you don't know what deck your cost is going to be until you actually decide to run, and that factors in on how much your initial cost or your initial effort value is going to be to recoup the cost of that deck. But a lot of times what people focus on is this here, your deck cost. We wanted to say deck. Your deck cost is what you call a sunk cost. You've had to already paid out the resources to get this one, and you really just need the 300 plat over and over again to participate to try to get the $10 win as well as the $7 win. So many times what folks will do when they're computing an effort value for a constructed event is they're going to take the probability of them getting first over the cost, and you end up with something approximately 3-ish. If we calculate it here. So the effort value for constructed is 3.58. It's not super terrible. It's more profitable than doing draft, but the front end for doing constructed is a very different story. And the reason for that is when you're putting together those decks, one, if you misread the meta, that's a pretty high risk there. And the effort value doesn't always put into the risk of metagame. Because if you bring a really good deck, and let's say you bring a fantastic Primal Dawn deck to participate, you may not necessarily actually hit all of your shard drops. You could end up scrubbing out within your first 2 games and not getting any prizes just because of how those shards will fall. And there's also a chance that you just have a bad day or you're on tilt. And normally you will want to kind of push through those when you're going through on your effort values, because it's generally the long term where you're concerned. When you're wanting to look at this from a new player's perspective, you've just built your constructed deck. Let's say you've built an approximately a $30 level of constructed deck. You've been doing limited. You've learned the game really well. When you're wanting to go in and do your constructed events, probably the best ones to go for are your VIP events. And these are actually really special events. So your VIP events, they require a special ticket to participate, and it is a VIP entry ticket. So the only way you get one of these is to participate in VIP, which will, for $8 a month, will give you a pack a week. So it's just like buying 4 packs a month. And you get this special entry ticket, and you enter into either a 4-round constructed tournament or you enter into a 4-round sealed tournament. And depending on your performance in those, you get an increased pack payout, which increases the effort value, and you also get alternate art cards. Now, the reason these alternate art cards are useful is because many times these are the chase and fun cards people like including in their decks. These are the ones that, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the Armies of Myth ones, some of these alternate art cards. And one that I'd like to look at specifically is Quashridge, if he is available today. So what we see here are Quashridge Tuskers. This was a great alternate art card that came from one of the last series of VIPs, one of the previous ones. And we see that right now they're selling for roughly 1,700, 1,800 platinum. This is some of the lows because these were hitting up even higher when the Ruby aggro decks were very prevalent. And so whenever you win at least 2 of those games, you're getting one of each of the alternate arts available. If you're not a big fan of alternate arts, if they're not very important to you, this is the time where you can bring in and sell these put them onto the auction house, and you make up quite a bit of that effort value. It's fantastic for Constructed because it helps mitigate some of the risk in those prizes only having to win 2. And then when you're looking at limited, especially in sealed, you can make quite a bit with your sealed pools. And it's one of those mitigating factors that even though you've paid $8 in the month previously, you're making that up with one sale and turning that from the $8 real world payout into platinum pretty quickly. And those tournaments are occurring every month. That's one of the reasons why you'll find a lot of folks advocating you participate in VIP, because when you do, you can get quite a bit of value consistently, plus the art on the cards is pretty awesome in most of the cases. So that is generally how effort value works in Hex. You're looking at the amount of resources you put into a tournament versus your expected amount of reward. Of course, some of the tournaments are going to have better effort values than other types of tournaments will, and some of them have a lot more impending sunk costs before participating. Always be sure you read your tournament screen before you enter in so that you understand what you're getting into and you understand your risks going in. But once you start getting confidence in your games and you start learning how to play well, it is a fantastic way to measure how you want to allocate your time, whether you want to go into something like a constructed gauntlet, a Swiss type of tournament, or if you want to participate in one of the VIPs. If you've enjoyed this episode of Hexonomics, please go ahead and hit the like and subscribe buttons or the follow button here on Twitch. We're going to be jumping into a set of Q&A here in just a few moments, and then follow that up with some beautiful Dino Island.